It's really, really cool to see everybody here. And we want to welcome everybody. And from the chatter, I think everybody's welcoming each other. I welcome you to the Michigan Hispanic Chamber Economic Policy Breakfast. So thank you, everybody, for coming here today. We really appreciate seeing you all. Again, this is an event that we've been doing for a number of years, and it's been a really cool event where we get a chance to have some breakfast, reconnect with everybody, kind of, see each other after a winter break and things like that. But this is kind of a different one because this is our first in-person one in 2 years. So it's really great to see everybody again. And there's been a phrase I've been saying all morning that I think you all are in the same boat where, wow, I haven't seen you in a couple years. And it's kind of crazy to think about, 24 months ago was when we were diving into this unreal world that we've been living with. And it's really cool that we're all back together, and it looks like we're, making the right steps and moving forward into a new world, which is great. Which was the world, kind of we all live in. Business is changing, the world is changing. So it's really, really cool to see everybody here again. I want to take an opportunity to thank our presenting sponsor. Flagstar Bank is our presenting sponsor this year. They've been a partner of ours for years. We cannot thank them enough for doing Hispanic Heritage Month celebration, Tesajueves, sponsorships at all of our events. They're engaging too. They want to meet our businesses, they want to help solve their problems, and they want to grow with them. So if everybody could please take a second to acknowledge our presenting sponsor. So I have a really unique opportunity here. I get to introduce somebody that's in a world that, as a business owner, sometimes we get thrown into worlds we're not really comfortable in. We start our business knowing construction or manufacturing or sales or something like that, and then you start building your business and you realize, wow, I got all these crazy risks coming at me from the internet, from systems, from processes, and you don't really think about that. And there's whole people that build their businesses on that, but as an entrepreneur, that stuff's coming at us fast, and it seems to be coming at us faster and harder than ever before. And so I get a really unique opportunity to introduce Juliette Antoine, and she is Flagstar's VP, and she handles technology, risk, and she's the manager of that area of the company. So she handles everything from systems, processes, controls, internet threats, our favorite thing, teaching employees about how to use IT correctly. She has to develop protocols to work through that. She joined Flagstar in December of 2020. Again, her role is to identify potential risks and implement solutions, process, and protocols to handle that. And for a very large organization, especially a bank where the money's at, that's got to be an immense responsibility. I'm sure she has an amazing team as well, and it's a really crazy world. Previously, she was the global IT audit manager for Aptiv, and she was a risk and advisory manager at Deloitte. So pretty amazing companies to work for before she joined the Flagstar team. She has over 17 years of experience in IT and technology risk areas. Juliette also has a philanthropic side and a giving side to her. She serves as the board member for Inside Out, a literary arts program, and is the corporate advisory board member for the Michigan chapter of Association of Latino Professionals for America, another great organization if you have an opportunity to engage them as well. A ton of great Latino professionals are members of that, and they do a lot of really good charitable work as well. She was previously president, vice president, and director of student affairs at Alpha. She is a member of the Michigan Latino Synergy Group, which is another really cool group. They take local employee resource groups, and they work together to give back to the Latino community. That's a huge initiative for Michigan Hispanic Chamber as well in 2020, is to continue to work with our ERGs and help build their connections to Michigan Hispanic Chamber as well as other organizations we partner with. She also serves as the lead in Flagstar's Latinx ERG, and she has held similar roles at previous companies. Juliet has an MBA with an emphasis in accounting from Wayne State University and a Bachelor of Science with a major in Management of Information Systems from Oakland University. She is originally from Mexico and is married and has 3 sons. I'd like you all to give a warm welcome and join me in welcoming Juliet Antoine. And so please, Juliet, please come up here.
Buenos dias. Thank you, Jesse, for the nice introduction and background. Buenos dias a todos. It's wonderful to be here and be in our first in-person event in a really long time. My name is Juliet Antoine, and I'm here representing Flagstar Bank, the presenting sponsor for this wonderful business event this morning. Outside of that, my real job, as Jesse mentioned, is leading the IT risk group, which these days with all of the cybersecurity attacks has become even more important in all of your companies. So if you don't know Flagstar, we're Michigan born and raised. We've been operating in the state for 35 years, and that's how long we've been involved as part of the local community. We are a full service bank, so we make loans to businesses large and small, including small business administration loans. And we are a giant in home lending, with the capability of originating loans in all 50 states. There are specialized lending programs to help low to moderate income families so that they can become homeowners. And there are down payment assistance programs that can involve grants. So make sure you tell your friends and family across the country that there are opportunities, especially knowing that the trend today with, Fannie Mae estimates that between 2020 and 2040, 70% of the new homeowners are going to be Latinos. And right now, nearly 1 in 3 Latinos is in their prime home buying time. So it's even more important that we educate people at what's available so that they can attain that, that may not have been available to the previous generation. As a partner with the Hispanic Chamber, we want you to know that Flagstar Bank stands ready to support your growing business needs and aspirations. We have an awesome diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative that includes a supplier diversity program. Besides our membership in the Chamber, we have supported the Hispanic community as a signatory of the Hispanic Promise through grants to Hispanic nonprofits and through business networking events such as this. And as a member of the Mortgage Bankers Association, we were proud to sign the Home for All pledge to promote inclusion in housing to all minorities. At Flagstar, we have 9 employee resource groups. Groups are employees that work together to help the local community and support each other. I'm proud to be the leader of the Latinx group at Flagstar. And that is something that, it gives us the opportunity to come in and give back to the community. Examples is we made donations to the Michigan Hispanic Collaborative. That's an amazing organization if you're able to volunteer, where we mentor students from high school to college so that they have the support and that they need that they may not have at home, such as myself. My parents did not go to college, so I had to rely on other people that were kind enough to be mentors. We've also supported the Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation, and we work with Puente Cultural Integration to educate Hispanic small business owners on what banking services we can offer them. Also pretty involved with the Southwest Hispanic community, with the Latino Synergies, COPA. It's a wonderful event that, all the ERG groups have met so many people across different industries, different backgrounds through that group. And it's wonderful to support, the Clark Cat Initiative and everything else that we support locally there. I've been a part of the Southwest community for 26 years. My father was a local business owner until his retirement, so I've seen the change for the last 26 years. The last 10 years, I've been fortunate enough that through employers like Flagstar, we've been able to give back to the community and really make an impact. So it's great to be here today. I'm really proud to represent a company that recognizes how important diversity, equity, and inclusion is, and to enjoy the event like this. So enjoy your breakfast, and thank you.
Well, good morning again, everyone. Muy buenos dias. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the beautiful and historic DAC. A number of you that I spoke with this morning, this was your first time here, so welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Michigan Hispanic Chamber of Commerce 18th Annual Economic Forum. My name is Mark Moreno, and I'm the Executive Director of the MHCC. One of the greatest pleasures in my role has been meeting so many incredible business and community leaders over these short 2 years that I've been leading the Chamber. Leaders that are passionately intentional about making positive differences in the lives of their employees and workplaces and seek to build relationships that promote and support minority businesses. So again, thank you to Flagstar. Thank you for all of our sponsors and business partners and members that have joined us today and supported us, not just today, but over these last couple of years and decades as well. One of those individuals in particular is Mary Mabia, Vice President, Diversity and Inclusion at Flagstar. Thank you, Mary, and the entire Flagstar Bank organization. Thank you for your partnership. We are delighted to have you as our presenting sponsor for this year's Economic Forum. It was through Mary that I was introduced to our keynote speaker. Pedro Espinoza has a resume that rivals many business leaders and executives twice his age. Yes, he is a TED speaker, entrepreneur, tech investor, and author. He's an inclusion speaker, management consultant, and corporate lecturer. He's educated at Berkeley and Stanford, but began his career as a mechanic. He is the founder of Pan Peru, USA, a venture that empowers women to become entrepreneurs, as well as founder and CEO of Smiley Go, an app that helps companies invest smarter in NGOs. He has given workshops for employee resource groups and leadership teams to help them attract and retain diverse talent, and he became a special advisor to Blue Shield of California's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. James Cruz. In 2021, he joined the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, as Vice President of Business Development to lead the 100 Startup Initiative and Launch Circuit to support diverse founders through funding, resources, and corporate partnerships. And in 2022, Pedro became a global shaper in the Palo Alto hub by the World Economic Forum and was recently named to HITECH's, the Hispanic IT Executive Council's, list of 100 most influential Hispanic leaders in technology for 2022. While much has certainly changed over the last 2 years that we've all experienced. Heck, much has changed in the last 2 months, right? One phenomenon throughout our nation's history that continues to evidence itself repeatedly is the ROI, not return on investment, the return on the immigrant. The entrepreneurial spirit of immigrants, their children and their children's children, continues to positively impact our national and local economies. Pedro is an individual whose journey reflects that drive and innovative spirit of the Hispanic community and provides an inspiration for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Pedro Espinoza.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Buenos dias. How's Motown? And I have to give kudos to Juliet. She taught me Motown. I had no idea what it meant like 2 days ago. Not gonna lie. I just literally flew back from Peru. My mom has Parkinson's, and I'm pretty open about taking care of family first. And so I was in Peru last 20 days, flew from Lima to Miami, took a long nap in the airport, and then Miami to Detroit. And when I was boarding the plane, and I love Delta, by the way, so thank you, Mark, for that. The people in first class were like, where are you speaking tomorrow? And I was like, oh, at the Detroit Athletic Club. And they were like, oh, but you're gonna dress up, right? Because you're wearing sweatpants and a Walmart t-shirt. And I was like, that's right. So before the plane landed, I went to the bathroom and changed real quick. But anyway, how's everyone doing this morning? It's a pleasure being here. And today we're gonna talk about building relational bridges. What do I mean by building a bridge? It's a metaphor for connecting with stakeholders. These can be your investors, your board members, employees, direct reports, managers, etc., etc., etc. To begin with, I would love to connect with everyone, and I encourage you all, now that we live in the digital age, on LinkedIn. So feel free to take a picture or the QR code there. I didn't bring business cards because I came right fresh of Peru. So a little bit about my background before we start. I was born and raised in Peru. And who has been to Peru? Has anyone been to Peru? Oh, okay, we have 2 people. So I'm gonna eat lunch with you and dinner with you today. I'll treat you. I'll use Mark's credit card. My hometown is about 12,800 feet above sea level in the mountains of Peru, called Pampas Grande. So the 2 people that have been, if you've been to Pampas, I'll give you a General Motors card today. I'm not gonna say Toyota, but, well, Toyota's sponsoring too, but anyway. And so growing up in Peru, which is a very diverse country, really helped me connect with people from different cultures, zip codes, nationalities, socioeconomic status. And this really helped me because when we interact with people that are not only ethnically or gender different than us, but diversity of experience, it's so important to connect and learn from others. I'm extremely passionate about paying it forward, and so one of the first things that I did in the US was I co-founded PAN Peru USA, which is a 501c3 social venture that helps and promotes STEM education in young girls and boys and empowers women to become entrepreneurs. We started in 2018 with 1 woman, and today we have 60 female entrepreneurs. We started training them on product design, product marketing, ideation, A/B testing, BC testing, CD testing, and everything testing, and changing their mindset, which is the hardest thing, from knitting is a hobby to knitting is a revenue stream for their kids, for their families, for their healthcare. And many, many times, a lot of companies that hire me as a consultant or keynote speaker, they buy 500 alpaca beanies, 500 alpaca scarves, and all the proceeds go to the kids and the women entrepreneurs. For those that don't know, Peru has 3 main regions. So the jungle, the Amazon, which we share with Brazil, and of course with Colombia too, because Andre is here and other Colombians too. Any more Colombianos here? Okay, cool. I hope that Peru beats Uruguay today, but anyway, that's a different story. I'm just praying that we can go to the World Cup. So that's the Amazon rainforest. Then we have the Andes Mountains, Los Andes, and then we have the coast, the ocean side. And so it's super interesting because more than 80% of the natural water, like the reservoirs in Peru, are in the Amazon side, of course. But then everyone lives in Lima. It's like 11 million people. So like efficiency is not the best in Peru. I'm just being candid. And so me growing up there really helped me get some high school, middle school internships. And Raquel, thank you so much for cropping those pictures because there were some dates and you could have told my age, but that's good. So my parents, my mom always taught me this in Spanish. Hopefully, algunos hablan español, ¿no? ¿O no? Yeah, okay. Mi mamá me dijo, dime quién andas, júntate con las personas, rodéate con los mejores, right? So surround yourself with the best. Se aprende haciendo. You learn by doing. And so in high school, in the summers of Lima, which is like 95 degrees, my parents put me everything in car shops and convenience stores, in gas stations, and everything. And that really pushed me outside of my comfort zone because my other buddies were going to, I don't know, like summer camps in colleges or doing French or Japanese or Chinese classes. And I was there giving out pamphlets and just being comfortable being uncomfortable, learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And this is super important because in Silicon Valley, where I live in California, we fail forward and we make a new mistake every day. What do I mean by this? I mean that we have to be operating at our edge. We have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And last night when Mark and I were, he picked me up from the Detroit Metropolitan Airport, which is great, and the BMW right there. I'm just kidding, Mark. And he was asking me, we're talking about keynote speaking. What's the best way to practice? And I know a lot of executives practice in Toastmasters and many other nonprofits. But the best way is by just doing it. And I know that Michigan, Detroit is known for, obviously, automobile industry. We have Kellogg's, Ford, GM, Blue Shield, Blue Cross, and a lot of companies. But it's important to embrace that be a doer mentality, being a doer of the word and applying it. And to be very, very candid with you all, my first tech company that Mark mentioned, I didn't sell it for millions of dollars. I didn't have the billion-dollar exit or anything. But the coolest thing in Silicon Valley is that we cherish our shortcomings. I had an opportunity to sell it for a better valuation, and then I counter-offered, and then the buyer bailed. But it's okay. We learn by failing forward. And that's what makes Silicon Valley a special place. Of course, the Stanford, the Berkeley, the Bay Area is beautiful, the Santa Cruz Mountains. But that mentality that we are human, that we can make mistakes, that we can be authentic, that we can be vulnerable, is special. And I hope that during these 30 minutes, you can all embrace that mentality of making a new mistake and failing forward. So yeah, there's me, and Raquel, tú eres la mejor, because she took off the date. It's, I'm not going to say the date, but anyway. I wish it was Ford or General Motors, I'm not going to lie. But it was Toyota. And they have the Kaizen philosophy, right? Who knows the Kaizen philosophy? Who wants to explain it real quick? Let's go with Andre. What's Kaizen?
Well, it's about a model of I think really Perusa, but it's about a short supply chain, and being effective all along the process.
Continuous improvement. And so in Toyota, right, in the summers, they train me how to fail forward, how to do the Genchi Genbutsu, like being there in the battlefield, as we say in Spanish, en la cancha se aprende, right? You can have an MBA, you can have a PhD, education is great. Equally important is being there in the field, learning how the workers, your coworkers, the colleagues are fixing the engines, los pistones, los cilindros, and everything. And so me connecting with diverse coworkers, Luis Torres is in the back, Junior is in the izquierda and the left, really opened my horizons of working with people who were, Afro-Peruvians, Asian Peruvians, and just people from different parts of the country and different languages as well. And so that experience, which I'm thankful to my parents, really triggered me to see how can I start a company in the US. A couple years later, I got accepted with scholarships to Berkeley in California, the only school that accepted me. I got rejected by 9 other schools, and Berkeley was the last college to send me either the rejection letter or the acceptance letter. And I remember I was talking to my dad, I was like crying and being like, Dad, I don't know if I'm gonna go to college. And he was like, have faith, let's pray, confía en Dios. And thankfully, Berkeley opened its doors. And this is a funny anecdote. I do have experience in the Greater Lakes region, because a lot of people were like, is this your first time in Michigan? And it is. Senior year of high school, I did a winter semester at University of Rochester in upstate New York. Has anyone been to upstate New York? We have the lake snow effect. And 18-year-old me, right, from Lima in December, it's like 90 degrees, I moved to Rochester, New York. Everything was frozen. Did I walk on the frozen lake? I did, with my dad. We're risk takers, and we did a bunch of other stuff. But more important than that, what I saw was that there are very few, Hispanics and people of color in these business school classes and this engineering and STEM classes. And just looking at some data that I'm sure many of you already know, right? So US-born Latinos represent the 7th largest economy in the world. That's like the size of Russia. And that does not include non-US born Hispanics, right? So that doesn't include me, that doesn't include Julian, born in Mexico, and many others who was not born in the US. There you go. It's like a third of the people in the room. So round of applause for that. Moving on to that, there's data that shows that Hispanics in the United States, we are early adopters of technology. We're the early adopters when it comes to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Peloton, Tesla, Uber, and many, many others in comparison to the average US citizen. Pursuing this further, Hispanics tend to be younger than the average American. And then immigrants in the US file for more patents and trademarks per capita on average than US-born citizens. So there is this immigrant advantage, as Mark was sharing. The business case for D&I, there's a lot of data by McKinsey, by PwC, by Deloitte that shows having women, having people of color, and people that think differently than you in a board of directors, in a hedge fund, in a venture capital fund, in a startup, will improve your efficiency and your EBITDA as well. So these are just 3 simple bullet points that I wanted to share about the Hispanic advantage in the US and how we can leverage that. Because we know that 6% of our state population in Michigan is Hispanic. So here, you can see, right? If the Latino GDP were a nation, it would be the 7th largest in the world. Here, let's see. Wow, everyone. What about Disney Plus? Does anyone like Peter Rabbit? Am I the only weird one? Okay, we got like 4 people. My mom loves Peter Rabbit, not gonna lie. Okay, I don't have Netflix, I'm not gonna lie, or anything. I'm a very weird millennial. So yeah, look, right, like Hispanics, 81% have Netflix. You look at Disney Plus, 50% have Disney Plus. That's more than the total US of 42% of Disney Plus. And I want to give good kudos to High Tech and Conectado, our friend Guillermo Diaz, who provided the data. So those of you that don't know, High Tech is the Hispanic IT Executive Council. When we look at US households with streaming service, 2019 to 2020, we looked at Hispanics are 78%, right? Way more than the average of the total of the United States. This is just a little bit of terminology. I know that some people use Hispanic, some people use Latino, but this is just for FYI. I know that we have a lot of Hispanics in the room and non-Hispanics too, and we have to vouch for one another. And a little bit of just the diversity within our region, right? Latin America, you can't really put people in a box. And me being here in Michigan, I'm learning a different culture in a different state, which is great. And being raised in Peru, my mom, we're from the mountains. So we grew up eating cuy. So I don't know, has anyone tried eating guinea pigs? 1 person in the back. Yes, 2 people in the back. I love you guys. Very different from burritos or tacos, right? In California, it's like, very, very different food. And of course, we're millions of different diversities and different ethnicities. Our former president of Peru, Alberto Fujimori, is Peruvian Japanese, right? Very Asian immigration in Peru. Celia Cruz, one of the best salseras in the world, Afro-Hispanic. And of course, Shakira as well with Arabic descent. So we're a very, very rich culture that we can't really put 1 person in a box. We have to learn to connect and be relational over transactional. We know this, that already today, Hispanics are nearly 20% of the US population. And it'll only continue to grow till that by 2060, we're gonna be almost 30% of the United States. So in this room, by data, 1 out of 5 should be Hispanic, Latino. Another chart, another map. This reminds me of a good anecdote. So who here has had a green card? When I was a kid, my parents, they lost, we went through the immigration process and they lost their green cards. So I did a semester of middle school in Nashville. Has anyone been to Tennessee? Yay, there we go. I love venison, by the way. And so I was there as a 9-year-old, and my classmates asked me, Pedro, where are you from? I said, Peru. They were like, where's Peru? I said, South America. Where is South America? And that's where little me, I stood up, I pulled that Rand McNally map, I spoke. I was like, this is North America and this is South America. And then my teacher was like, man, that is leadership. And the coolest thing, I'm eternally grateful to the US, super blessed, because being a kid in Peru, my hyperactivity, I used to ask tons of questions, I used to laugh and speak and be loud, was seen as a negative trait of my personality. And I'm doing this metaphor, maybe I'm just brainstorming with Michigan and California, right? Where like in Silicon Valley, we innovate, we make mistakes, we launch products, we do, 2-week iterations, software engineering, right? Like bam, 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 we're like rushing. But I feel like in the automobile industry, it's way more structured, right? It's way more quote unquote conservative, quote unquote more traditional, which is good, we need organization. But the same thing like Peru, right? My teachers even gave me a behavioral clipboard. When I was an 8-year-old, at every class, they had to judge me and say, did I behave well, mediocre, or extremely bad? When I moved to the US, me mudé a Nashville, only for a semester, my teacher, Miss Lee Parrish, me dijo, the fact that you love to ask questions, that's leadership. The fact that you love public speaking, that's not something negative, that's something positive. And so that changed my mind and my chip, mi chip, como decimos en español, when I was a kid. And then we moved back to Peru. Mi mamá, she got her green card and everything. And I completely changed from being that negative connotation of hyperactive Pedro to a leader, to a type A, hyperactive, hyperaggressive, joyful Pedro. So just wanted to share a little bit about family story there and some data on the future of the Hispanic market. Now let's go on relationship building and networking. And before I do this, I really want to give a big thanks to Flagstar Bank for sponsoring today. So thank you, Juliet, and round of applause to Flagstar. For many of us who have been to business school, networking is very, very speed dating, give me your business card, LinkedIn, connect, transactional, which is good. There's a time for everything. But from what I've learned in very successful tech CEOs, because I wrote a book called Differences That Make a Difference, was published in 2019, and Pat Gelsinger, the CEO of Intel, wrote the foreword of the book. And as you know, Intel is investing a lot of money in this region, right? I believe in Ohio, they're building a huge, huge multi-billion-dollar facility. And he taught me networking 2.0, which is not about just giving a visit card, hola, ciao, adios, no. He taught me that it's about relationship building. Pat Gelsinger taught me that it's about learning about one's family members, health matters, because in the end, we're all human first. And that's something really interesting that I learned at an early age in the US, to connect and to convince CEOs of multinational companies and Fortune 500s, is by treating them and viewing them as a brother, as a sister, as a mentor, as a father or mother figure. And whenever I connect with someone, I try to memorize and write it down on my iPhone, of course, their birthdays, Favorite football team or basketball team, March Madness? I don't know if Michigan's playing. I'm sure they are. How are we doing tonight? There you go. I'm going to watch the Peru-Uruguay game, though. I'm just kidding. And, there are bar mitzvahs, the temple or the church or the mosque. I'm just trying to be a student of these leaders. Because let's be real, a lot of people are tired. These CEOs are tired of being bombarded on emails, on LinkedIn for transactional things. But then when we're genuine, when we're authentic and vulnerable, and we're like, hey, I want to connect because this and that, or like, how's your dad with Alzheimer's doing? How's your mom's with Parkinson's doing? I heard you had a heart attack last year. Or how's working from home treating you now that you have your third kid and you're going through a divorce? Being that really taught me to connect with people. And this picture, you sort of trimmed Zach, but that's okay. You can see Professor Jack Fuchs in the middle. He's a Stanford engineering professor. He's also a venture capitalist. And unfortunately, he has 3 Teslas. And to be very candid, I didn't even attend a single class when I was a student at Stanford of Jack Fuchs. At Stanford, at the end of every quarter, they send you a survey because they want to improve the professors and lecturers and their performance and everything. And I filled it. I was like, Jack, I didn't really attend any single class, but I'm happy to give you feedback. And you know what? He was like, I'm curious why you didn't attend. We met at Coho. Has anyone been to Stanford? No, Julian, you've been to Stanford. Anyone else? Okay, we got some people. Went to the coffee house. And I shared with him that I had my startup, right? I had a fintech company, SmileyGo, a digital payments company at the time, 10 years ago. And I was inundated with work. We got funding from the dean, from Peter Thiel's 1517 fund, from Frank Baxter, and many other CEOs. And he understood why I wasn't, why I was skipping class. But more than that, I was wearing my immigrant antennas, right? The antennas. And I saw that he was wearing tennis shoes. And I was like, Jack, do you run or what do you do? And he said, yeah, I love playing tennis. And my son, Zachy, to the right, you can barely see him. He's a nice gentleman. He plays tennis with me every Friday. And I was like, hey, I would love to exercise. And he's like, yeah, I have a heart condition. I would love to embrace that, healthy work-life balance. So we started playing tennis and jogging at the dish and building this relational lifestyle of friendship, which is the most important thing. Many of us, especially the millennials, we think there's no bilateral mentorship, but that's not true. You don't need a title. You don't need to be a CEO to be a leader. We all need from each other. And then with Jack in Palo Alto, we have the opportunity to break bread together. He's Jewish, I'm not Jewish, but we pray together. And that's the commonality, the common good, the unity that I love in building bridges with people, right? And after we exercise or we play tennis, he thanks me because he's a venture capitalist, he's a board member, a tech investor. But by having time to exercise, I'm helping him, and he's also helping me with startup, P&L management, and venture capital experience. So remember, it's about connecting with people at a human level, and you don't need a title, you don't need a CEO title to be a leader and connecting with others. Real quick on LinkedIn, a lot of people reach out and just want, golden nuggets on how to improve your LinkedIn visibility. I'm gonna be extremely vulnerable. I started posting every week on LinkedIn only a year and 3 months ago. I really didn't use LinkedIn at all like 4 years ago. I had like 500, 400 connections like most of us do. But by posting every week, I started gaining followers, and now today I have almost 14,000. But the coolest thing is to write down your 3 principles. So I encourage every one of you to take 10 seconds and think, what are the values that define you? What are the principles that define you? And include that in your LinkedIn title, because now that we're all hybrid and working from home, we have a physical brand, but we also have a digital brand. And your digital self is as important, is more important even than your face-to-face brand, as we all know, because today everything is streamlined. And so I encourage everyone to think and ponder, what are those 3 characteristics, those 3 values that define me being me? But be candid, it can be, I don't know, it could be you love playing chess, you love cooking. I have a Lomo Saltado cooking channel on YouTube. I'm not gonna lie, I love to cook. It could be whatever. It could be meditation. It could be cycling. It could be skiing in Vail or Colorado or anywhere. And include that because that's gonna find that unique differentiation when you build bridges and connect with people. In the end, people buy from people they like. And how we say in Silicon Valley, everything is sales. Yes, we're known for engineering, Stanford, code, computer science. But with tech entrepreneurs, when we're raising capital, what are we doing? We're selling equity of our company to the VCs, to the venture capitalists, to the investors. And we have to embrace these soft skills. Because hard skills are commodities, right? It's easier to teach someone JavaScript, easier to teach someone Ruby on Rails, but it's hard to teach someone how to be a CEO, how to be a leader, how to connect with people, how to convince a CEO of a Fortune 500. Today, I have the honor of teaching, part-time of course, I can't bear with the schedule, at Tecnológico de Monterrey. Has anyone been to Tec de Monterrey? Any Mexicans in the room? There we go, we have a lot of people. And so I focus on this because the soft skills are the ones that will set us apart. And just putting specific LinkedIn contacts and personalized messages so people will remember you. Being memorable is key when you build your digital brand to build those bridges. Now let's go into social broker. This is also a very cool Silicon Valley term that we use a lot, is connecting the dots, right? Malcolm Gladwell talks about super connectors in his book, Outliers, David and Goliath, and many others, Tipping Point. So for example, if you know a bunch of tech entrepreneurs, what do they always want? Can someone guess? Like a seed, a first-time early stage investor, early stage entrepreneur who's creating a tech company, what do you think she always wants? Yes, she always wants to raise money. We have a lot of bankers here, so that's good. And then we have investors, venture capitalists. What do you think they always want? Yeah, they want deal flow, right? They want scouts. Entonces, ¿qué vas a hacer? If you're in the middle, you're a social broker. You help people succeed, and people come to you even more. It's sort of counterintuitive. I don't know who plays golf. I learned at Stanford as an adult. I didn't grow up in Peru playing golf. But it's extremely counterintuitive, right, in golf. And I played golf with your son, Andre. He's a great golfer. You would think that if you swing extremely hard, you're going to perform better. But no, trust me. I've learned to suck at golf. In golf, my swing is not the best. But if you just, like a pendulum, es mejor. You have to be soft. The same thing when you're dealing with CEOs and top investors and innovators in Silicon Valley. The more you focus on others and helping others reach their KPIs, their OKRs, their Six Sigma, their SWOT analysis, whatever, helping others reach their dreams, mejor te va a ir a ti. Because people will learn, she or he, she focuses on empowering others. And then they remember you. And they're like, oh, Pedrito, he only calls me for a favor. Pero no, we have to focus on building those bridges and being relational and genuine with people. Persistency. This is also many good anecdotes as well. And I'm going to share how I met Pat, actually. So 18 years ago, when I was in college, I'm just kidding, I got invited to this tech conference in San Francisco. Pat Gelsinger was the keynote speaker. At the time, he was the CEO of VMware, Virtual Machines. There was like 500 people in the room. I loved his speech, and I was like, man, I really want to connect with him because he's, a Fortune 500 CEO. Not only that, he talked about his family, and I'm always family first. As I said, I was in Peru yesterday taking care of my mom. He talked about his wife and his kids and faith and work. But there was a huge line, right? This is pre-COVID. Next to the conference center was Fogo de Chao. Has anyone been to Fogo de Chao? Hey, there we go. So I'm going to be vulnerable. As a good Latin American, I was like, you know what? I'm starving. I'm gonna go get some picanha and hopefully I'll be back and get his book signature and autograph. That never happened. But persistency. I was like, how can I connect with him? I sent 10 emails, not even kidding. I sent gelsinger@vmware.com, p@vmware.com, p.gelsinger, like all the different combinations. 9 bounced, 1 went through. But I was very specific. I was like, Pat, I heard your keynote, I read your book, I want a 15-minute coffee chat at your convenience for X, Y, and Z, like an agenda, right? I read his LinkedIn, his Twitter, the nonprofits he supports and everything. Little did I know that he replied at like 4 a.m., and yes, that's true, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies work all day. Unlike the siestas here, I'm just kidding, I love napping. I do, I nap all day. It's true. I play tennis every day and I nap all day. And so he was like, okay, let's meet in Palo Alto at 5:10 a.m. next Tuesday. I think I was like 19 or 20 at the time. I was a teenager. And I lived in Concord. Who knows the Bay Area? Who knows California really well? Anyone knows California? Okay. You know that Concord is in the East Bay. Palo Alto is here, man. It's like Michigan, like Andre was telling me that Silicon Valley is similar. Everything's spread apart. I had to wake up at like 3:30, 4 a.m. because traffic in California is just, it's not good. It is not good. Julian wanted me to move to Detroit, but anyway, we can talk about that later, man. And so I wake up, start driving, of course, me just like opening my eyes. I don't even drink coffee. I don't know why. And I get to his meeting, but I read everything before, right? I looked up his Twitter, the nonprofits he supports, the marathon he did, the Kilimanjaro thing that he did, the hiking, mountain biking, cycling, and I had a very specific value proposition. I told him that I had an idea of writing a book on how to retain and attract top talent. And I wanted to interview him because I wanted to interview 10 CEOs. Turns out that Pat and I shared more commonalities, passion for sports, and church, if I could be very candid. He invited me to his church, and so we connected on a relational level. Years later, and this is very important as well, it takes years to build trust. I knew that Pat reported to Michael Dell because at the time, VMware was part of Dell, right? It took me like 5 years till I asked Pat to connect me with Michael Dell because I'm writing my second book now, and he's helping me with the second book. So that's the tenacity and the persistency in being a student or doing your due diligence, as many lawyers or VCs would say, when you connect with other Fortune 500 CEOs, when you raise capital, when you convince people. And that's something that I learned from Pat in order to move forward in your career as a business owner or as an executive in a publicly traded or private company as well. Talking about trust and failing forward, something that it's very, very California tech entrepreneurial is building that trust with someone. I was in Peru the last 3 weeks, but I still worked even though I was taking care of my mom. And I had the honor of meeting Bill McDermott. He used to be known as the CEO, president of SAP. In Spanish, we say SAP, and the pictures that I showed you of me in the gas station, nosotros usábamos SAP Business One. Have you heard of SAP Business One? And so I was joking with Bill. I was like, Bill, I've been your customer for 25 years. He was like, I would have hired you if I knew. And then today, Bill is the CEO of ServiceNow, which is a multinational software company. Bill was sharing with me, how do you build trust with the person in Silicon Valley? He says, building trust, fostering trust is like filling a bucket of water with droplets. Tick, 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 tick. But he said it's super easy to break that trust. It's like pushing, empujas, el baldecito, like we did with the orange juice this morning. No? Entonces, that was a really interesting metaphor and analogy that I learned from Bill. And in the end, that's something that really encouraged me to be intentional with our personal board of directors. Who are business owners here? today? I know we have a combination of business owners and executives. Okay, so about 20%. And then the rest of us are executives at big companies. We all have a board of directors, right? But we also, as human beings, as entrepreneurs, as innovators, we have our own personal board of advisors, of sponsors, and mentors. Who knows what's the difference of a sponsor and a mentor? Does anyone know? Do you want to share, Juliet? Mary, sorry.
Okay, a sponsor is somebody that will speak about you in order, whereas the mentor is a person that gives you advice, and whether you take it or not, they're at least giving you advice for your career or different things.
Exactly. So a sponsor is someone who vouches for you, who has a skin in the game. And a mentor is usually someone who just, gives you advice, which is great. And as Latinos, we love talking, so we can give advice to anyone. And what I learned from working with 150 companies for my first book and with my consulting company is that many of us, people of color, immigrants, women, we tend to be over-mentored, yet under-sponsored, right? People who are in the boardroom, in the hiring room, in the promoting room, the sponsors are the ones who wear your t-shirt when you're not there. Why do I say t-shirt? Because in California, we don't wear this. In Michigan, we do. And big thanks to Dre and Julian? Nick, who helped me tie this, by the way. Because in Silicon Valley, we honestly, we never wear this. I'm not even lying. Never. So I'm blessed to be here. Sponsors are the ones who wear your t-shirt when you're not there. Right? And we need sponsors, regardless if you're the CEO of Flagstar Bank or the intern at Flagstar Bank or at any company. We need those sponsors. What are some tangible steps to get those sponsors to nourish and cherish your mentors? Something that's worked for me and it can work for you is, I call it love language. It's kind of bougie. But basically is I write handwritten letters during, Christmas or baptisms or bar mitzvahs or whatever to those mentors and sponsors. I send them a book. I send them the alpaca. I don't know if you can see the alpaca scarves. That's chalinas, bufandas from the women of Peru. And it's not all about sales, right? It's not all about making money and transactional, but it's about remembering these leaders, these board members, about their humanity and about them being una persona, un hombre, una mujer, un hijo, a son, a daughter, a grandparent. And so that has helped me to connect with people. And in my phone, I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, please raise your hand. I write down everything that I can remember of them, like their favorite book, their poem or whatever, something that's memorable, the name of their kid or their daughter, so then I can really connect with that person when I see them next. And it's really, really important in Silicon Valley to get those sponsors. Now, here's a very, very short story on my first sponsor in America. Her name is Rosemary. And the picture, she's 80 years old. She plays golf every day. She's in shape, probably better than me. And I got scholarships, like I mentioned, right, at Berkeley. And when we were at the scholarships luncheon, the president of the Alumni Association said, we need a speaker, a volunteer, to give thanks to the donors. Pueden adivinar, nadie quería hablar. I don't know why. I was like, man, what's up with all these Californians? They're so shy. And so I was like, you know what? Mi mamá siempre me dice, levántate, sonríe. So I was like, I volunteer. I'm going to go say things. So I stand up at the podium, grab the mic. I give a 2-minute pitch of like me from Peru. At the time, I wanted to be president of Peru by 2041. I'm not going to lie. Fun fact, 6 of the last 8 presidents of Peru are in prison. So I'll probably change my life dream unless you recommend otherwise. And everyone got stoked, got super pumped up. They were like, man, future president of Peru and everything, bilingual, trilingual. And Rosemary, after the speech, was, Pedro, do you play golf? And I was like, no, but I switched it. This is the entrepreneurial mindset. I was like, I didn't victimize myself. I was like, but can you teach me? Can you mentor me how to swing the swing? And she said, yes. I was like, okay. Next thing I know, yo estoy con su prima, with her cousin, at Orinda Country Club. Orinda is super nice. It's like this, DAC, you know, super bougie. And first thing I do, like she said, I'll see you next Tuesday, and it was a Thursday at 8 a.m. at the Cal Alumni Association. And we beat Stanford this year, which is really cool. Football. I don't even like football, but anyway, let's not get there. I like soccer. I go to Walmart, buy the cheapest, you know, golf shirt. Then I don't even buy a golf short. I just use a whatever, khaki. I don't even know how you call it in English. Spanish is my first language. And then I buy the cheapest, you know, cap, gorro, hat, and everything. And then my other friend from my dorm me prestó the clubs, you know? And the coolest thing was that Rosemary's cousin is German. Like all these commonalities, right? Different generations, different zip codes, different religions, different political affiliations, but we were able to connect. Su prima, her cousin, was from Germany, from Stuttgart, and I studied 2 years of German in Berkeley. So another commonality. You get it? And many of us as entrepreneurs, we think, oh no, I can't connect with an investor, I can't connect with the CEO, but we can. We just have to be intentional. So that's how I got Rosemary to be my first sponsor. And she invited me to speak at her class of 1955 reunion. And everyone's so fit. I wish I could be 90 years old and play tennis and golf like she does. Now moving on to my first tech investor in California. As well, a sponsor, someone who has the skin in the game, someone who invests in you, not only financial capital, which is important, as Lorenzo was sharing, and I love your name, by the way, in Spanish, but their social capital. Sponsors connect you inside their network and open doors for you. So I was a freshman at Berkeley, and I was wearing my Nike sweatpants and everything, and I woke up super late for class. As a good Peruvian, I was late. I was taking multivariable calculus. I love math. And I had two options. Go to class late or eat brunch. As a good Peruvian, I was like, you know what? My mom taught me, come bien y duerme bien. I'm serious, del resto no te preocupes. En verdad, Karina, my middle sister, went to Stanford. Y Diana, la mayor, my oldest sister, got scholarships for Oxford. So she did something right. My mom did something right. So I opted, I went to the cafeteria. I went to Golden Bear Cafe. Anyone who's been to Berkeley campus, let me know, but I went to GBC. 19-year-old Pedro, and I see this 80-year-old man wearing a business suit, no? Con su corbata, with the tie, and I guess I lied. Some people do wear ties in Silicon Valley. And I remember my parents' advice of júntate con los mejores, right? Surround yourself with the best. And I was like, well, everyone else here is a freshman or a sophomore, might as well connect with a wise man. So I'm wearing like a polo shirt or whatever, a t-shirt, and I'm like, hey, can I grab brunch next to you? I had a Caesar salad, and yes, I love vegetables and fruits. I'm a weird person. And he's like, sure, my name is Frank. And I'm like, my name is Pedro, great to meet you. And as soon as I sat down, talking about the immigrant, you know, the cultural intelligence antennas, I see that he had a US flag, like a ribbon, and the flag from Uruguay, right here. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I'm from Peru. Have you been to Latin America? And he was like, yeah, I used to be the US ambassador to Uruguay under President Bush. And I was like, no way. And I was like, why are you here? This is a freshman cafeteria. Like, all of these are 18-year-olds, and you're like, I was like, you're a very important business person. I almost said something wrong. And he said, my board meeting got canceled. And I said, what board? He said, well, I'm a trustee. I was like, oh. You know, millennial digital native me, I Googled real quick, what does trustee even mean? Because I was fresh off the boat from Peru. I was 18 years old, right? I did high school, everything in Peru. And I was like, wow, you're in the University of California Foundation and trustee with Janet Napolitano and everything. And he said, yeah, my board meeting got canceled. I was really hungry, and I had no other option than to eat at this freshman cafeteria. So picture this. 18-year-old millennial with a person born in 1936, different mother tongue, different nationality, different zip code, different socioeconomic status, different net worth for sure. He was the CEO of Jeffries before becoming the ambassador, so president of a multinational investment bank. But we were able to connect. And these are the bridges that I encourage you today. What bridges are you building today for your business, for your P&L, for your board of directors, for your multinational company, for your construction company, for your consulting company, for whatever you lead today in Michigan, which is a great state, by the way. I love the stadiums and everything. Those bridges have to be to relate with people, and Frank taught me that. You know, we started speaking in Spanish, and that was the coolest thing of that breakfast. Right after he said that he lived in Uruguay for 3 years, we started speaking in Spanish. Two different people from different generations, ages, nationalities, religions, and everything connected over my mother tongue, right? Equally important, I asked him, Frank, what can I do for you? Talking about reverse mentorship. He said, well, you know a lot of international students, and I'm hosting an event around Latin American politics, and I want more international students to attend. I was like, of course, I'm familiar with Alpha and SHIP and all these different, diverse clubs for STEM and careers, and I invited my buddies to help him. And so in the end of that breakfast with Frank Baxter, the CEO of Jeffries, he gave me his business card. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Every month, I would send him a newsletter of my startup idea, of my classes, of everything. After 4 years of building that relationship with Frank Baxter, from being 18 years old to 22, I matured a lot. Guess who was the first person to write a check and invest in my Delaware corporation doing business as California? It was him. It was the first person to vouch for me, the first person to invest. But not only that, Frank connected me with another venture capitalist in Los Angeles and Palo Alto and San Jose. So this is what I'm talking about, sponsorship and entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley, is that people open doors through forwardable emails. Frank taught me that. And to close the loop with that, he was one of the first 10 CEOs I interviewed for my book, Differences That Make a Difference. So you see how everything connects, right? He funded Smiley Go. We did digital payments for nonprofits all over the world that got funding from Google, from Dropbox, from Motorola, and other multinational companies. Yes, I was the only man in the founding team, which is really cool. I was the youngest in the team, and I was the only male in the team at Stanford. He connected me with Tom Kosnick, who was a professor at Stanford, who became part of the board and mentorship as well. But more than that, I think building bridges for me means failing forward. Like I said, in Silicon Valley, we celebrate failure, and persisting. And that happened to me. I've had many rejections and shortcomings. One of them, very personal and dear to my heart, I got rejected when I applied to become a US citizen in 2015. I was super excited. I had my green card for, 3 years or something. And I guess that was the problem. I had to stay 5 years before applying to get my US passport. But still, things like that, or I failed several classes, well, 2 classes, not several, but 2 classes, accounting, because I never attended these classes at Berkeley. Not because I'm stupid, but because I was working all day. I had funding from the deans and the president. I got the award from the president of the university. And when I failed, I was like, I didn't give up. I was like, hey, can there be some? She was like, you're a great entrepreneur, but we want you to graduate. So I couldn't buy my way in. I had to actually take the summer class. So we have to fail forward, right? And cherish those learning experiences. I think the most important lesson for today is when you get your first no, that's good. In Palo Alto and San Francisco, we're always like, man, your first no gets you to your second no, to your third no. You have to get 10 no's to then get a maybe. And then you get a yes. And you follow up through LinkedIn, through text, through FaceTime, through Slack, through Teams, like so many different things. And it's a full-time job, right? Like networking, connecting with others, building bridges, it takes time. Where do I find that time? I have no kids, so I think that's where I find my time. I want to have 10 kids like my grandpa. And that's my co-author right there, Jorge Titinger. He's from Peru as well. Big voucher for high tech as well. And we wrote this book to encourage companies to innovate through inclusion. And he was one of my sponsors as well. You know, he connected me with Reed Hastings, talking about Netflix, who was one of the 100 CEOs that I met for the book. We had 100 CEOs that wrote the book with us as writing contributors. People like Sandra Phillips Rogers, the Chief Legal and Diversity Officer of Toyota. People like Maria Martinez, the COO of Cisco. People like Dan Schulman, the President CEO of PayPal, and Pat Gelsinger of Intel, and Steve Bennett of Intuit. And what I learned about this was that the power of forwardable emails and asking for small bits of time from these CEOs work. 10-minute times, being adaptable, being flexible, being resilient, right? Because Silicon Valley is known for being super, super, super resilient and adaptable. There's no thing like A/B testing. There's like AZ testing over there. Those are the QR codes for the books. I'm more than happy to sign them. I came straight from Peru. My mom got sick, so I had planned to bring the books, but I had to go to Peru, so I didn't come from California. But next time I'll be back for the BRG Summit. Promise to sign books in the fall. I'll be back. And this is a very, very short exercise, basically on building your operational, personal, and strategic network and putting your critical connections. And yeah, just remember to add these connections on your phones and being intentional on this. Last but not least, these are the alpaca sweaters and scarves of the women entrepreneurs. I know that we love empowering women here at Michigan, so feel free to take pictures. I'll send a personalized thank you note. My handwriting is not nice, I promise. Every product comes with a thank you note from the entrepreneur. And yeah, last but not least, this is the impact of the AI economy. As you know, it's a shared economy. It's about mobility. It's no longer about car ownership. And how AI is going to continue to influence our economy by increasing the GDP by 1%. I know we're running out of time, so just last 2 slides. It's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to stay there, right? That's a very Silicon Valley thing. At Stanford, there's the duck syndrome, where the duck looks fine on top of the water, but underneath the water, you're like paddling and struggling. So we have to be open as entrepreneurs, as CEOs, as tech innovators, having your personal board of mentors. Last thing, I know our Hispanic culture, we always say we, but to get promoted in corporate America, you need to say I, you need to vouch for yourself. You don't need to say like, oh, my team did this, but give credit to yourself and vouch for yourself as well. And these are the takeaways, you know, be open, be consistent, be intentional when you connect with CEOs, with venture capitalists, connect with others, and build that bridge. So thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias y un honor estar acá.
Sensacional. Gracias. Pedro, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you, and by the applause, it was very welcomed, so thank you. We are going to have about 10 minutes of Q&A time right now, so if you want to take a few seconds to think of a question, we have a couple of ladies in the back of the room who have roaming microphones that will walk to your table so that you can ask your question to Pedro. Julian. Okay, here comes the microphone.
I can play the piano too.
What is the integral?
Oh man, that was like 10 years ago.
So just very quickly, you know, it's totally in the soft area. At the end of the week, it's Friday, it's 10 o'clock, you're going home. how do you know you made a step forward? Because all of this is very soft. You know, what's the feeling inside? Like, how do you know you are moving forward? Like what are some of those signs that you get inside of you or in a chart or in whatever? Like, what do you use?
Great question. I use Trello, like the boards for PM, product managers, but more than that, I really rely on my mentors and sponsors. I talk to them every week. And whenever I see that they positively criticize me, right, constructive criticism, or like push me or say, hey, you did this, you did this, you did this well, you did this well, I feel that I'm like moving forward. That's a good question, because many times we're in the day-to-day operational business and we're like this, right? We're laser focused, but es muy importante to be outside of that. And one way for me is tennis. When I play tennis, I intentionally leave my phone like I did with you right there. I leave it in the car. I don't even bring it to the locker room. And I play for 2-3 hours every day. After this, I'm flying back and I'm playing tennis at 5 p.m., so I'm so happy. And I just leave everything and I just connect. And it's so important to have that balance, because if not, we all get exhausted in the workplace. But by having those mentors and those sponsors that tell you at the end of the quarter, at the end of the week, your traction, for me, it keeps me on check, because no one does it alone.
Lorenzo has a question.
Pedro, thank you. Great talk. And I agree with you so much about connecting with people as a first step. But I think you might be capable of giving us a little bit more advice about what you do after you've made those connections. You can have a universe of connections and make very little progress with the people you've connected with. How do you strategize about leveraging those connections? How do you figure out the best way to make good use of the connections that you've made? And how do you prioritize amongst the many connections that you make all the time?
Great question. So I'm a big believer not only in annual resolutions, but in OKRs and KPIs per year, per quarter. So for example, for me, one of my goals this year is to finish my second book. And so I prioritize, okay, what's my main goal of the year 2022? The book. I need to find a forward writer, right? So then I start prioritizing, okay, who's gonna help me get that forward writer that I want? And I'm specific. Like when you build a startup, you have to be specific. You create a user avatar, right? Like what's the age demographic? What's the ethnicity, education level, income level, socioeconomic status? So same thing for me. I was like, okay, I want a female writer for the forward writer. I want her to be a Fortune 500, either board director or CEO. So I start prioritizing in my network. Because yes, Lawrence, you can't play tennis with everyone in your personal board of directors. It would be impossible. I've tried it. It doesn't work. So trust me, I love tennis that much. But there are some connections that are intentional, that you know that you can just touch base twice a year. But there are others that you know that there's just that chemistry. En español decimos la química, ¿no? De que, you know, right? Like when you text someone and they text you right back, you know that ya hay química. And that's just something that we can't control, right? Some people are just meant to get along more than other people. Entonces, I'm super blessed that, you know, through high tech and many other organizations, I get to meet very few, amigos son contados con los dedos, right? Your good mentors you just have in one hand, where these are people that vouch for you. But yes, you have to be intentional and laser focused, right? If you work at a big company and you're like, I need to get Amazon as a customer, then focus all your resources in AWS. Like look at, I don't know, like what country club that AWS executive, maybe he comes here at DAC. Try to join DAC, right? You can't afford DAC? Try to befriend someone who has that membership and can get you into the gym or the pool, you know? Like, you have to be laser focused, right? Like, I've never heard of a successful tech CEO in Silicon Valley that did a startup part-time. Like, no, like she or he, they're super, super laser focused. And same with me. When I have my goals, I just prioritize them. Super, super laser focused.
Is it on? Okay. Hi, Pedro. Thank you so much for sharing today all the wonderful experience that you have. My question is, how do you ask to someone to be your sponsor?
You pick your mentors, but your sponsors pick you, usually. And the best ways by keeping it organic, I would not recommend to just, coldly be like, hey, can you sponsor me? Like, yeah, I did that with Pat. I did a cold email, but I went to his conference. I read his book, so I did my due diligence. How to get sponsors? Well, number one, you have to extremely over-excel and outperform on your day-to-day job. Like, sponsorship is for high-performing achievers in a company, right? If you're not surpassing your quotas or your OKRs or KPIs, you're focusing on the wrong thing. First, focus on your job. If you do that, you're good. Number two, you have to be memorable and likable. Like I said, right? Those soft skills go way, way further than the hard skills. I have good friends at YouTube, at Google, at Apple that are senior leaders, and you can't imagine. They complain to me many times. They tell me, hey, we just hired an amazing, PhD computer scientist from, Princeton, from Stanford, from Berkeley, but she or he, they're not a good team player. It's because these people, you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't have those soft skills, those communication skills, you're going to struggle, right? And that's why I didn't mention Michigan, because we know Michigan's a great school. So, yeah.
We have time for at least one more question. Yeah.
Good morning. I wanted to commend you on when you were speaking of all of the relationships that you built. One thing that I noticed, you are a wonderful communicator. But I wanted to ask, I see you shared with us all of the connections that you've made with, getting the mentors and the sponsorships. Now, do you mentor anyone? And I have a two-part question. Also, talking about Silicon Valley, are there any programs or any tours or anything like, I know a few young people from Michigan who want to go to Silicon Valley, but don't know how to get there, don't know if it's a program, because they have ideas and things that could probably benefit, what you all have to offer, or they can bring something new, is what I can say.
Good questions. Yes, one of my biggest passions is PAN Peru, where I sponsor. I think sponsorship is more important than mentorship, personally speaking. But I sponsor these women, right? These 60 Latinas. To be candid, I make $0 out of that, but I put my own money. I train them. I go to Peru. I'll be back in June and April. I bring people from VMware, people from HP that support me. We go and inspire the women. We do training, leadership programs with them. And mentorship as well. I teach at TEC de Monterrey. I teach engineering and entrepreneurship, and I mentor the kids. Well, the college students. I shouldn't say kids. I feel like they're only a few years younger than me. But anyway, I mentor them, and I'm very intentional. And that's a question for you all, right? If you want to see more women in leadership, if you want to see more, black and brown people in leadership, if you want to see more immigrants in leadership, then who are you vouching for? Right? Don't complain and be like, oh, there's no, person of color CEO in Michigan. And then if you look at your own personal network, you're only hanging out with, no women, then we need males to sponsor for females, right? We need Caucasians to sponsor for Hispanics. We all need each other. It's not an us against them. I'm a big believer in unity. And to answer Lorenzo's question, I'm thinking and I'm awake, Peru's 1 hour difference, time difference. You have to be vocal on what your goal is. You have to verbalize it. Don't be shy. I know it's easier for me, but still, I'm going to practice it today. So for example, for my job as the vice president at the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, I'm trying to get Salesforce and Morgan Stanley as a customer, right? So same thing with you. We're going to network in 10 minutes. Don't be afraid. Just verbalize. Like, what are you trying to achieve this fiscal quarter? You never know. I got this job at Silicon Valley Leadership Group at a keynote. I spoke at Stanford Hospital, is a good client of mine for my consulting. The dean is half Hispanic. She's half Salvadorian. ¿Tenemos salvadoreños o no? Ahí está una persona. And she was like, hey, I love your personal branding, your marketing, your cultural intelligence. connected me with her husband after the speech. And her husband was like, I'm a new CEO. I want you to help me with this. And I was like, sure, I can volunteer. He was like, no, 6 figures, this, P&L, team, direct reports. I was like, wow, and can I do my other entrepreneurial work? He's like, yes. I was like, fine, I'll work for you. So you never know who, you never know how, you never know when. But like Lorenzo was saying, you have to verbalize what your focus is today and share that with people, because people here can help each other. We just have to verbalize it.
Hello, Pedro. My name is Brian. I just want to let you know that was a great presentation that you gave. And by the way, if you're here in Michigan, I am an avid tennis player, okay? So I would love to get together and play tennis.
What's your USTA rating?
I'm actually a 5.
Oh, you're extremely good. Well, I love to get my butt kicked, so let's play.
Okay. Listen, I'll teach you how to do that
I'm a 4 or
backhand,
5
all right,
for
all right.
California level, so
Sounds
Michigan's better than California, right?
All right. But the question I wanted to ask was the fact that you mentioned that as an entrepreneur, that you mentioned there were 10 no's before you got to a maybe. And I know there were X amount of maybes before you got to a yes. So other than just the communication and the networking that you were doing, there were actually changes that you were making, right?
Of course.
Significant changes in the process. What would you say were the most significant things that you did that actually took you from that no to a maybe and from that maybe to a yes?
Man, that's a great question. And you started with tennis, so even better. And you're probably going to win. I'm jet lagged. I'm just kidding. If you try the same strategy, you're going to get the same output. I know it's super simple, but you have to change your strategy, right? So for my tech company, a big shortcoming and failure that I had, I'm going to be candid, as a 19-year-old entrepreneur, I was allured and enamored and impressed by the IBMs, the PepsiCos, the JP Morgans. No offense to them, those are great companies. They wanted to try my software, my enterprise software, for free, right? Because, all companies want to save money, right? They're like, oh, you're a little startup, give me a 3-month MSA, but don't charge me anything, right? And 19-year-old Pedro was like, oh, of course, like, I love PepsiCo. Yeah, use my software for free. Failure, right? Like, don't give your software for free. That was a big mistake that I did. We lost a lot of money and a lot of people. But those are the things that I changed in my investor deck and presentation. I changed the business model. I changed the pricing model. I changed the go-to-market strategy, right? I was like, we're not going to have a freemium model because freemium doesn't really work unless you're Spotify or another successful company. So I had to make these changes to my core business. As you said, communication is important. But if you don't change your core strategy, investors are not going to listen. They're going to be like, oh, you're pitching the same thing to... People talk, la gente habla, and they're going to be like, oh, you pitched the same thing to la competencia, to the other venture capital fund, and you didn't change your business model. Why should I listen to you? So those were the things that I changed. Same thing with teams, right? I got a better CTO, a better chief technology officer with more experience. So things like that it had to be specific. It wasn't high level. It wasn't broad. It wasn't blah, blah, blah. But it was something substantial, right? In Spanish, la sustancia, like substance that we change. That's a really good question. You're a very smart guy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Pedro, for joining us. Well, for never being in Michigan before, he held his own pretty well. As we wind down our program this morning, on behalf of myself, my team, our board of directors, I just want to thank you again very, very much for being our guest this morning, for taking time out of your schedule.